Well, hi there. You know what time it is. It's Please Don't Die time. I don't want you to die. I want you to read this book and buy this book. So, here we go. This is Please Don't Die by Stephen Cammarata. We are at Chapter 8, Friendship. This is a very good chapter. They're all very good chapters, don't you think? They kill me. All right, here we go. All right. Chapter 8, and by the way, this is from Book 2, Please Don't Die, Dad. I think I forgot to say that in the last video. So anyway, Chapter 8 is called Friendship, and here we go. My father always used to tell me that in life we will come, or blah, 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 blah. All right, hold on, we're going to start over. I know it looks like I'm binge drinking, but it's only the same can, and I'm just really thirsty, I swear. But as you know, it's I gave up beer for Lent, so that didn't go so well. Okay, here we go. How you guys doing? You doing good? All right. My father always used to tell me that in life, friends will come and go, but a true friend will be there right up until the day you die. This long understood life message from my dad resonated soundly in my mind at his funeral when I watched my Uncle Doug approach the casket and pay his final respects to his fallen friend. Uncle Doug was not actually my uncle. Similarly, his wife Charlotte was not my aunt. Charlotte nor were their two children, Paul and Sarah, my cousins. But due to the overwhelmingly strong bond of friendship, this was all I have ever known them to be. It is hard to actually pinpoint a memory of when I first met this wonderful family and became introduced to them because the friendship was cultivated long before I was even born. Uncle Doug and Dad met in Vietnam, where they had since become lifelong friends. To be honest, I know very little of my father's time in Vietnam, except for some of the basic things that I've learned through the many pictures he took during his time there. Luckily, just like myself, my dad loved to take pictures. Dad was a chaplain's assistant and a builder as well as a soldier. He helped the Vietnamese people with medical care and other basic needs. He helped build churches and shelters for the innocent Vietnamese families whose lives were torn apart and impacted by the senseless war. This, I'm sure, must have caused my dad much backlash and animosity from other U.S. soldiers who viewed all Vietnamese people as the enemy. Dad didn't see it like that. He understood that the young children whom were left alone and without their parents were innocent victims and collateral damage to a war that had nothing to do with them at all, but destroyed everything they know and love. In my family, Vietnam was rarely talked about. It was basically understood by us kids to be a taboo subject, never to be discussed. I've always been curious about Vietnam and what experiences that my father may have had there, but I've never dared to ask. It was just something that Dad had never liked to talk about, and we respected that. I have always wondered if my dad had ever killed anyone during the war. And that is most certainly a question that I've never let leap from my mind to my mouth. I guess some things are just better left alone and kept unanswered. There is no doubt that my father had seen horrible things. Understandably, he had buried and tried to repress these awful memories. Once, as a very young boy, I remember going up to my parents' bedroom while they were sleeping and slowly approaching the bed to give my father a kiss goodnight and a hug goodnight. He woke up with a shot and quickly grabbed me around my small neck with both of his big, strong hands and had almost choked me to death. "Thomas, no, it's Stephen, you are having a nightmare." Mom was screaming and clutching at Dad's hands. In that moment, I was the enemy. In Dad's sleeping state, he was still guarded and instinctively thought that I was an enemy Vietnamese soldier. The only story of my father's time in Vietnam that I've ever heard was about the time his tent lit on fire while he was sleeping, and it was a fellow soldier saved his life by entering the burning tent and dragged my dad, whose clothes were on fire, to a nearby ditch that was filled with muddy water to extinguish the flames. Luckily, Dad was barely injured and survived the incident without a serious burn or injury. The story wasn't even actually told to me, but rather I just remember hearing it being told to somebody else. My memory on it is pretty fuzzy. Ribbit! Sorry. But one memory that serves serves me well. One memory that serves me well is that of my Uncle Doug, Aunt Charlotte, and my cousins Paul and Sarah welcoming us with open and loving arms on our many visits down south to visit them at their family home in Shawsville, Virginia. Disneyland was fun and all, and I was fortunate as a kid to have been lucky enough to go there several times in my younger years. But the vacation that my siblings and I most looked forward to was the family car ride out to Virginia. Dad always made the ride fun. I always remember this one funny thing he would do. He called it a phenomena. When cars would pass him, he would slowly turn his head and look over to the driver. And 9.99 times out of 10, sure enough, the driver would turn to meet his glance. Dad would point out that if he never looked over, they wouldn't even look over either. It even worked for passengers. My siblings and I would make the game out of it, and we would make a game out of it and stare down passing vehicles as we would literally keep score to see who got the most people to look over. It was double bonus if you were lucky enough to get both the passing driver and the passing passenger to both look over. Mom and Dad would plan different side trips on the way to Virginia that would provide historic and educational value for us kids. I remember going to see the actual battlefield at Gettysburg. I remember going to Hershey, Pennsylvania, and taking a tour of the Hershey Chocolate Factory. I remember visiting various homes and mansions of former presidents of the United States of America. One of the coolest things that I remember experiencing on our way to Virginia was going to different caverns. I had always been fascinated by the various stalactites and stalagmites, and everything about a cave tour was right up my alley. I remember once hearing the expression, kissed by a cave. Having this happen to you was supposed to be a sign of good luck. Being kissed by a cave was when a drop of water landed on you, and it was very special. Once I put my tongue out and had one of the precious good luck water droplets land right on my eager tongue, and I felt so much jubilation as I distinctly remember feeling like I was literally king of the world. We knew we were getting close when we crossed the railroad tracks that led to the steady incline up the beautiful mountain road. It was so picturesque, just like a postcard. Going through the small town, you could just feel the history as you gazed out at the super old buildings and structures. There was a lot of farmland as well that provided not only sights to remember, but smells that were to be forever etched in the deep resources of our young brains. Uncle Doug and Aunt Charlotte's house was right next to Aunt Charlotte's family's farm. There was a huge barn, lots of cows, tractors, and farming equipment. Pulling into the driveway was one of the most exciting and memorable times of my entire childhood. Sorry. It was always so neat to see how much the kids have grown and changed since the last time we've seen them. Change and growth could easily be recognized as well from looking at the familiar climbing tree that was located in the front yard. It grew as we grew, but yet stayed the same. The anticipation of seeing the family was so powerful and so memorable. A year or so could have easily passed since the last time we've seen this truly wonderful family, but it was always as if time had literally stood still, and it seemed as if only a few days had gone past. This, my dad would always say, was a true sign of friendship, real friendship. Their southern accents were so strong. How y'all doing? This from Aunt Charlotte. We sure did miss y'all. This, said Uncle Doug. Our Yankee accents were equally as strong, and it always fascinated the kids just as their accents fascinated us. We are doing great. How are you guys? The car was then unloaded, and we shuffled into the cozy farmhouse to settle in for the long trip to catch up. I remember every inch of this home just as if it was my own. My favorite thing about the house, though, was the property that it was on and the beautiful mountainous surroundings that wrapped around the house as far as the eye could see. Their house was located at the bottom of a huge hill that winded its way up into the clouds. And we would take bicycles and walk them to the top of the hill and zoom down speeding past their house and coast all the way to the train tracks. We would do this for hours and hours. It was quite a workout. Not surprisingly, we would sleep like babies after all that fun and adventures we had throughout the day. My very first experience ever with a motorcycle was here in Virginia. My cousins had something called a Honda Big Wheel. It got the name from its huge rear tire. The thing was incredible. It went at least 35 miles per hour, I would guess. But to a thrilled kid like me, it felt like it went 100. It was kind of like a mini bike and pretty user-friendly for a beginner. My brother and I would take turns riding it in the endless fields for hours and hours. This little taste in motorcycles would turn into a lifelong passion for me, as I've owned and ridden over 20 of them since this cherished moments in my younger years. I passed this pastime on to my children as well. Both my son Tommy and my youngest son Nicholas have dirt bikes, and the three of us enjoy going riding all over the place. While we were riding the Honda Big Wheel, we had to keep a watchful eye out for the cows. There were plenty of them all over the place. With huge and endless rolling hills, you had to be especially cautious because there were blind spots, and as soon as you came zipping up one hill to the other, you could be flying full speed over a hill only to be shockingly find a lazy cow casually grazing at the side of the next steep incline. They even had a huge bull on property with giant pointy horns. My dad found this out the hard way one year. Dad thought it would be a smart idea to get super close to the bull and pet it and to try and take a picture. The bull had other plans and it didn't help my dad any that he happened to be wearing a bright red flannel jacket at the time. As Dad grew closer, the bull took focus off of his grass eating, and in its place locked eyes with my dad and began to charge. Dad was scared to death and he started running towards the house. I remember at this time all of us kids and other adults were safely behind the fence. I've never seen Dad run so fast. As Dad charged towards the fence, he tried to hurdle over it like an Olympic sprinter. Let's just say his plan didn't work out so well because he broke his ankle and ended up in the emergency room. And that story was told over and over and over for years to come. Our friends owned a country store a short distance from the house. We loved to go there and hang out and buy snacks. Of all the friendly Southerners we experienced had such a casual and laid-back way about them. Almost everyone looked you in the eye and said hello. It wasn't uncommon for a complete stranger to engage in casual conversation, and once they had heard our distinct Yankee accent, kind of messed that sentence up a little, sorry. One funny thing I will always remember about visiting my Uncle Doug, Aunt Charlotte, and Paul and Sarah is that when time came for them to say goodbye and for us to go back up north, it seemed like we were all beginning to have a slight southern accent as well. It was sad saying goodbye. I will always remember sitting in the climbing tree with Sarah watching Mom and Dad pack the car, and we were getting ready to leave. Sarah looked at me so seriously and she said, "Do you think that when we all grow up and get older and maybe even have kids of our own, that we will all still remain friends just like our parents?" The minute she asked this question, in my heart, I already knew that answer was, of course, yes. To this day, we are still very close. I took my boys there a few summers ago to the farmhouse on our way to Disneyland. I took them to the very top of the hill, and at the end of the street explained to them how, as kids, Uncle David and I would spend our days zipping down this hill on bicycles so fast as we could possibly go. I took them for a walk through the farmers' fields and showed them the spot where their grandfather, that they have unfortunately never met, had broken his ankle getting chased by a bull. I took them to see the beautiful caves and caverns that I so cherished visiting when I was their age. Now both Paul and Sarah have families of their own. Our friendship remains strong. Sarah and her family came up north for a visit a few years back, and Sarah's husband helped paint several rooms in my mom's house, and he even helped install gutter guards to help prevent the leaves from building up. They are still in place today. We are so very blessed to have lifelong friends like this. If you have someone in your life like this, please cherish them forever and tell them how much you really love them. Friendship is such a blessing and a great gift to have. My father recognized the importance of this. Several years after my dad died, I found a letter that he had typed out discussing the importance of true friendship. As I read it, I have no doubt that even though it didn't say it, he was referring to Uncle Doug and Aunt Charlotte. I will finish this chapter with my dad's own words and thoughts as I share with you now this letter that he wrote so many years ago. 1966. On friendship. To be a friend is a wonderful thing. None but a friend know the happiness that true friendship can bring. A kind thought or deed or word of praise, the willingness to do so and not just to receive. A friend is a treasure to be held on a pedestal high, and friendship is something no amount of money can buy. So do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and you'll be called a friend by all those who know you. Thomas M. Cammarata, 1966. Miss you, Dad.